Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel and happy Valentine's Day. This wasn't the movie that I had planned for Valentine's Day. I didn't have a movie planned. Let me start over. I've always meant to watch this movie at some point. I know it's like really, really well known. My parents have always said that it's good. I had it saved on my YouTube free with ads list on YouTube for like the past 2 months. So I was gonna watch, this was inevitable that I was gonna watch this movie. And then I was watching some romance movies, which you're gonna get some reviews of, I think, like summer of next year or something. And they weren't really good, and I was like, and then I saw that this was on Hulu, and I'm like, okay, you know what, this will be my chance to just watch this movie. Maybe it'll even out the romance movies that I had watched that I didn't really care for, and this was gonna be like the last romance movie I watched for a while, probably. So yeah, you're gonna get a video in some video next year where I'm gonna say, "Oh, I'm finally watching When Harry Met Sally." That's because I'm pre-recording, or that's because those are pre-recorded. This one is not. Well, it's like 2 days until February 14th, but in comparison to that being pre-recorded like a year in advance or whatever, it was that I made those videos and then I watched this movie and I made this video. Yeah. Anyway, so I knew this was a really, really well-known movie, and I assumed it was going to be really, really good, but it like blew away whatever high expectations I had for it, and I agree now of like why of that it's really, really good and why it's so well known. And it's funny because I didn't really know anything about the movie itself. I knew that it was I knew who the actors were. I knew there was some scene in a in like a diner or whatever. I think there was like a Muppet parody of it as well. I didn't know what the scene was, which makes it really funny when I finally got to that scene in the movie and got like the context. So I went into this pretty much blind into this very well-known movie, and I'm so glad that it had just happened to work out that way, because I feel like this is a movie, the less you know about it, just kind of the better it is. Most of this movie is just talking. It's these two people that just keep running into each other over the span of like 12 years, where they end up, it's like at first they hate each other and then they don't remember each other, and then the third time they meet they become friends and they stay friends for a while, and then they end up as lovers by the end. I have notes for this. I will get into my notes, but I think what makes this movie so good, besides the acting and stuff, is the writing. For a movie where it's just two people talking the whole time, pretty much, of just these two characters having their conversations and hanging out, the writing is just phenomenal with this movie. It just feels so real. I know you hear me say that with like several movies that I watch, which is a good thing. I like when movies feel like, what I mean by real is like where it doesn't feel like what in general, not just with this movie, where it doesn't feel like, oh, it's the kind of thing that people would only say in a movie or whatever. But if it's the kind of dialogue where I could see it as like a conversation I would have with a friend, or something that just comes off very naturally. I mean, obviously, like somebody wrote a script and their actors delivering their lines, but when it feels really real, and this one does, I feel like it gives me, no matter what else my opinion is on the movie, that always gives me just more of an appreciation for it. They have so many silly conversations in this movie. I love it, especially once the characters become friends. They're hanging out in all these public places and having all these conversations about whatever. There's a point where they go to a museum, as an example. I think it was a museum, and there's like other people around, and Harry gets Sally to talk. They have to like talk to each other in silly voices, and it's like a bit that goes on for a little while. And I feel like in any other movie I would be like, oh, okay, whatever. But with this, it's like I was just enjoying it. Like, it's nothing that adds anything to the plot or whatever. Just a lot of little moments like that. I mean, it's stuff that adds to their changing relationship throughout the film, but yeah, the writing in this is so good. I don't even really know how to explain it. It just is. There's something else I found interesting with this movie as well, and I feel like I didn't really get it at first. Where at first I thought it was going to be every time there was a time skip, but then there stopped being time skips and these moments still kept happening. It's actually how the movie opens as well, where it's like these old couples, like elderly couples, being interviewed for some kind of documentary. Or that's like the format of the way it's shot. You never find out what the documentary is or who really these people are. It's just these old couples and they're talking about how they met their partners and stuff, and a lot of it is really, really sweet, and I didn't really understand why that was there. But then at the end of the movie, when the main characters are a couple, they get to sit on that couch in the documentary too, and they talk about their relationship and how it took them. Because with a lot of the older couples, it was very much like they knew they were in love with each other immediately, and then with the main characters, it's just, yeah, it took us 12 years and 3 months to get together, but it happened. But in the 3 months part is that once they get together as a couple at the end, in 3 months they end up getting married. You don't actually see them get married, but you hear them talk about it. But the movie's goal isn't like, oh, they need to get married. It's just it has this whole relationship. I mean, they have this question at the beginning of the movie of like, oh, if men and women can be friends without, oh gosh, what was it? Was it without sex getting in the way? No. No, that's The Mirror Has Two Faces. That's a different movie. But yeah, it's like if men and women can be friends without them needing to date each other or sex or anything. And it's that they can be friends. The characters do end up becoming friends, but they hate each other at first, which is also really funny. Okay, I'm gonna finally start reading off my notes. I just feel like I had to go through all of that. One of the things I really loved with this movie and gave it kind of like a timeless feel. I mean, the movie itself, you could tell, especially from Meg Ryan's hairstyles, the movie is set in the 80s, or not originally set in the 80s. It starts in like 1977 or something, and then it goes into the 80s. But the movie is from the 80s, I think like 1989 or 88 or something, so pretty late in the 80s, but you can tell from the outfits and the hair and stuff, it's from the 80s. Since I mentioned Meg Ryan's hair, I gotta say, I loved all of her hairstyles and everything in this movie. Like, the character's hair, because it's just like Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal the whole time in this, like, within this 12 years, where the characters go from being like college age to being like adults in their 30s. Wait, that doesn't sound right. No, I think they end the movie in like their 30s or something. Their faces aren't really changing. It's just their hairstyles changing as these people keep meeting each other. I loved every single one of Meg Ryan's hairstyles, where sometimes her hair was kind of curly and sometimes it was like kind of long and straight. It was funny because like her hair was great and Billy Crystal's hair looked weird to me a lot of the movie, especially at the beginning. I gotta say, I've probably seen Billy Crystal in more things than I have Meg Ryan. I mean, with Meg Ryan, I feel like I always associate her with these kind of romance movies, or especially because she has like, I think at least 2 or 3 with Tom Hanks. I think one of those is Sleepless in Seattle, and one of them is You've Got Mail. Both of those are really good movies, by the way. I know I haven't done reviews in them, but they're movies I also recommend. I just wanted to mention about that. I always like Meg Ryan. I feel like she's good in these kind of roles of these kind of like 80s, 90s romance movies and stuff. But yeah, Billy Crystal I've probably seen in more things. I mean, I always associate him with like, Mike Wazowski and Monsters, Inc. And probably also as Calcifer in Howl's Moving Castle. Anyway, I gotta say, I think this is probably my favorite role of his now that I've seen this movie. Like, I'm so used to him in comedies, and he does play like a bit of a comedic character here, where he's always kind of the one out of the two characters that's kind of joking around a little and stuff. But he does have moments where he gets very serious about things. Like, there's this woman he ends up married and getting a divorce from named Helen, and that happens like kind of early on in the movie, and then later on he runs into Helen again. And it's just crazy how fast he can like switch emotion in a sense, where it's like 1 minute him and Harry and Sally are singing into this karaoke machine or whatever, and the next minute his face completely changes and just becomes very stern, and he says that Helen is there, and then you see Helen, and it's just like, whoa. But yeah, I think this is my new favorite role of his. Okay, I'm gonna get back into the notes. But yeah, the music is great. There's a lot of songs by Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong. I think at least 3 of them, which is really cool. There's a lot of just like very classic jazz songs and everything, which is really nice. The song "It Had to Be You" is kind of the movie's main theme. I've always really liked that song. And it plays a lot as an instrumental. I always love when movies do this, by the way. You're going to hear me talk about that with the James Bond movie reviews eventually as well, where the movie will have a main theme, and it'll be like an instrumental throughout that pops up throughout most of the movie, and then at a critical point towards the end that you'll finally get like the lyrical version of the song. I mean, with the Bond movies, it's sometimes that'll happen with the credits, during the credits. But anyway, yeah, that happens with this song. I always love that with music and movies. But yeah, It Had to Be Used, I think, a good choice as a song for this movie. But yeah, all the music is great. It makes the movie feel very like timeless in that sense. Okay, now I feel like I can jump back into my notes. I said I was going to. I read the part about the music, and then I went off on a little tangent here. I didn't think the start of this movie was going to be talking about what makes a person like mentally dark and having thoughts about death, because it starts off with the characters. They meet each other, they hate each other, they have to go on this drive together. I think Sally's taking Harry somewhere. They're going from like their college to, I think, New York or whatever, and they have these conversations. I love the way these characters evolve throughout the movie. Like, Sally is a person that's very particular about things, and especially her orders for food. And Harry is someone that can be a bit of a jokester, but also just has so many opinions about everything. And that's especially very true at the beginning and stuff, where he kind of judges her for a lot of her choices about things. Like, she mentions about going to New York, and he's like, oh, why are you going? And she says, I want things to finally happen for me. But then when she says that she's gonna go and try to become like a writer or something, he says, oh, so you're gonna write about other people doing things and things happening to them and whatever. And he's such a oh gosh, what's the phrase my mom uses, like a pot stir, like the kind of person that's always trying to create drama in a sense. Where or not really drama, but like he's always asking Sally, especially at the beginning of the movie, like very personal questions. And it's not always kind of in a way of like, oh, you meet someone and you're trying to get to know them, like the basic things you ask someone. No, he's going for the hard-hitting questions, and Sally will give him a look and be like, I'm not going to answer that. I don't have to answer that to you. And then she'll answer anyway, and he always does that, and he knows that she'll answer and stuff, and he annoys the heck out of her and assumes so many things about people, but it's like so well written and so funny that I feel like if it wasn't as well written, this kind of character might have gotten on my nerves. I actually never felt annoyed by him, though. Even at the beginning, I always just felt entertained. So then there's a 5-year time skip. I actually don't have a lot of notes for this movie, actually. I kind of just got the bulk of my opinions out in the beginning, but I still want to go through these anyway. So then there's a 5-year time skip after their car ride and stuff, and, oh, okay, I didn't write anything for that one. Except that it's that they meet each other. It's because it's really short. It's basically they run into each other at an airport, and Sally is really hoping that Harry doesn't remember her and he doesn't comment on her. It's like she's hooked up with someone now and they're talking, and or Harry's talking to the guy or whatever, and Sally later says like, "Oh, thank goodness this guy didn't recognize me. I gave him a ride, whatever." Um, and then there's another 5 year time skip, and this time Carrie Fisher is introduced in the movie. I don't remember what her character's name is, but she is an important character. So I might mention her a couple times in this, but I'm just going to refer to her as the character that Carrie Fisher plays, because I don't know that she plays a character that's like one of Sally's friends. And then what was I going to say? This is the point with this 5 year skip. So now it's been 10 years since the first time the characters met each other, where they end up becoming friends. So I have a lot more to say. And then there's another like 4 month time skip later on, but there's never at this point any more like, oh, years later or anything. Which I'm glad, because otherwise it would have been like too much time passing. I was really worried this was going to be a movie, especially because it kept showing all the old people at the beginning and stuff, and throughout the movie I thought, oh, okay, is it going to turn out to be one of these old couples is going to turn out to be like the main characters and that they're never going to get together or something. But no, they do get together in like their 30s or whatever. It just kind of takes a while. But it's interesting to me that like Harry kind of keeps seeking out Sally throughout these like time skips and stuff, where he even admits, like I think around the first time they meet each other, that he finds her attractive. I kind of felt as I was watching the movie that he developed feelings for her really, really on. It's like the way he's always trying to find her and stuff, but like the way he talks to her, even if he gets on her nerves, it's in a sort of way where you could tell like, okay, he's like at least sort of interested in her in some way. And I feel like there's a point later on in the movie when Sally ends up kind of interested in him, where they're at a New Year's thing and they're dancing, and she has this look on her face of looking really kind of confused almost. Okay, but I'll get to that in a while. But I like it at this point with the second of the 5 year time skips that Sally's kind of a little harder on Harry at this point about how they originally met, like kind of calling him out on some things. There's this sweater that Harry wears at some point once the characters become friends. It's like this white knit sweater. I feel like that's one of the only other things I knew about this movie was the sweater. It's not plot important or anything. I just kept looking at it in the movie and I thought, damn, that looks really comfortable. I love just watching the characters hang out, honestly, at the for the portion of the movie where they end up as friends. That was like one of my favorite things with it. Like there's this part where you hear them having a conversation on the phone, and it's set to all this footage of them doing stuff together and doing things alone, where Harry gets like kind of depressed over his ex-wife and Sally's just kind of living her life or whatever. And there's the split screen thing later where they're on the phone and they're watching Casablanca, because throughout the movie they're talking about that movie and stuff. But I always like when, oh gosh, it happened in another movie I watched, but I forgot to do a review of it, where characters, they're on the phone and the movie will edit it like as if they were in the same room, but you can obviously tell like they're not in the same, like it's not supposed to be so good that they're like in the same room, but it's that they're in their respective rooms and they're talking, you know, because it's this vibe of like they're talking in a way on the phone as if they were just already together and stuff. I always like that. There's a there's a part when they're walking through a park. I assumed because the movie takes place in New York that it was Central Park. I don't know. I've never been to New York. I don't know if there's any other parks, you know, but that's like the big one. But they're walking through this park and it's fall and the leaves are orange. It just looked so beautiful. Like I live in a place where the leaves don't really change color. I have to like go somewhere at least like 2 to 3 hours away, or like 3 hours away, to get to an area where the leaves sort of change colors. So that's always a thing that stands out to me. Same with or not really as much with snow, but where when I watch movies and it's places where the leaves change colors and they're super bright and vivid and everything's orange, I always just feel so jealous of that. Um, but yeah, I love that at this point they're friends, they're watching movies. Harry convinces Sally to talk in a silly voice. I don't know why that was one of my favorite parts of the movie, but it just was. It sounded like something dumb I would do with my friends. There's a part it's the part when they're walking around in the park and they're talking about dumb dreams they have of sex fantasies, and Harry's making fun of Sally's where she says something about like a faceless man taking her clothes or whatever, and he's just like, oh, that's it, that's your fantasy you've been having since you were like 12 or whatever. And she starts talking about how like, oh, no, sometimes it varies, sometimes I'm wearing different clothes, and he like kind of just judges her a little bit for it. And sometimes you get to see the characters hanging out with their friends and they're talking about each other with that. Like there's a part where Harry's talking to one of his friends about how he enjoys being friends with Sally because he can just be himself. He doesn't have to worry about like getting into her pants or whatever. And they can talk about the people that they date and stuff. And then there's the infamous restaurant scene. I mentioned about that at the beginning. I swear I saw a parody of it on The Muppets Tonight. I think because Billy Crystal was like the host of one of those episodes, which now I gotta watch that part of the episode again if I can find it. But yeah, I knew there was a restaurant scene. I knew how the restaurant scene sort of looked, like the way it was filmed or whatever. I never knew what it was about. I just thought it was them talking at this table. And now after watching the movie, I get it. I get why the scene's so well known. Also made me glad that I was watching this alone. But it's basically that Sally fakes having an orgasm at a restaurant just to prove a point, because her and Harry are talking, and he's like, oh, no woman has ever faked an orgasm with me. And Sally's just like, well, how would you know? And then she just decides to fake one and starts making all these moaning noises. And there's these people at the restaurant that are just staring at her. And even Harry's staring at her like, what the fuck are you doing? And it's funny to me when she's done, she just goes back to eating her meal or whatever as if nothing ever happened. And there's one of the well-known lines of the movie is this person saying, I'll have what she's having. And I never knew what the context of that was, but it's said by this just random older woman. She's not even like a character or anything, or like a side character or whatever. She's somebody at the restaurant. And this is after seeing Sally do the fake orgasm thing, and she's just like, yeah, I'll have what she's having for that. But that was funny. But yeah, I'm glad I finally got the context on that scene. And I originally thought like, oh, they're probably just talking and maybe there's some well-known lines in there. Nope, it's probably remembered for the fake orgasm thing. And then you see that it's winter, and you have these shots of people doing Christmas stuff around New York. That was nice. And then it's New Year's, and the New Year's party, they're dancing, and it's sweet. I thought it was interesting. There's a part when they're dancing cheek to cheek, like their faces pressed against each other. And I feel like that's the moment they realize they kind of like each other or something. Like that's the point where I feel like Sally probably has some kind of feelings towards Harry. Like I half expected after that point that maybe they would try to get together or something, but they don't. But it's just because as the characters are kind of spinning in a sense, it's like you look at their faces and you can tell they feel something, you know? So then Sally tries to set up Harry with Carrie Fisher's character, and they do like a double date thing, and then Carrie Fisher's character and Sally's date hit it off instead. And then there's a 4-month skip, and those two characters are planning to live together, and then they end up getting married. And then there's this funny part when Sally and Harry, after they like finally have sex or something, they call, because they're each friends with the person in the couple, and the couple's just sitting in bed next to each other on 2 different phones, talking to like Sally and Harry or whatever. And then at one point they're like, "Oh, is that so and so on the phone?" And they're like, "No, no, it's someone on TV." But that was a funny scene. Um, but yeah, that's funny to me that, it takes the main characters 12 years to get together, and then with their friends that they accidentally got together, it took 4 months, and that was it pretty much. And then, or actually, no, it was 4 months, and they were living together, and then I think like 3 months or something. I don't remember where they finally get married. And their wedding vows are super funny, where they say like, "Hey, to Harry and Sally, good thing that neither of us found you attractive, or we wouldn't be here right now." That made me laugh really hard. And then there's this part where Harry, it was kind of interesting. Harry and Sally, they get into an argument. I think it's like their first like actual argument when they're friends. Where Harry's like, "Hey, how come you've never gotten upset about anything? You're always happy all the time. You never got upset about your ex, Joe." And then there's a later point in the movie where Sally's crying and she's like, "Hey, come over," and she's venting to Harry and stuff. And it's sweet. He's very like gentle and comforting her. He doesn't try to judge her about her life decisions for once or anything, or making jokes. He's just kind of trying to be there for her. But then what I was not expecting was that he kind of just gives her a kiss in like a, not in a romantic context, but in like a, like, he was already kind of holding her a little bit, and he like kisses her to leave to go make some tea or whatever, and she's like, "Oh, keep holding me." And he kisses her again, and as like a way to leave. It's just like a quick little like peck in the mouth or whatever. But then she kisses him back, and they keep kissing, and then suddenly they're in bed, and Harry looks kind of horrified, but Sally looks happy because it ruins their whole it ruins his thing of, he says in the beginning of the movie how men and women can't be friends, and if they have sex then the friendship is doomed and it's over. And I think he's, now that they've like been in bed together, he knows like, oh, okay, our friendship is over now, and he's, sad about that. He enjoys being her friend. And then they get kind of awkward where they get into an argument later on, I think at their friend's wedding, and Harry's like, oh, kind of, I think implies that it was like a pity, like he had sex with her out of pity sort of thing, and then he realizes he fucked up and he keeps calling Sally to apologize. That part was kind of funny because there's one point where he sings into a phone to get her to apologize, to be able to apologize, when she ends up mad at him. And then it's New Year's again, and that's where you get the end of the movie. I really liked the end of the movie, actually. Where Sally is at this New Year's party with some guy, but then she ends up alone, and Harry's just wandering around outside, and he doesn't want to go to the party because she thinks that she's more of like a consolation prize for him in terms of their friendship and sex thing and whatever, of, neither of them are really hooking up with people. And then I think one of the best parts of the movie where Harry, he's just wandering around outside alone, and he's remembering the sex-ruining friendship thing that he said at the beginning, and it's played over this sort of montage of, like, his friendship with Sally, and their friendship's ruined, but, like, they can date now and stuff. And then you get the lyrical version of It Had to Be You, and it's sung by Frank Sinatra. And Hallie's like, not Hallie, Harry is sprinting over to the party to find Sally, and I do like the love confession scene when he finally does find her, and he's like, "I love you," and she tries to leave, and then he does this thing where he's like, "Oh, I love the way you whatever," and it's like listing out all her little quirks, including how it takes her like an hour and a half to like order a sandwich or something, which is referring to like she likes her food in a very particular way, and that he loves her and why he loves her. And she's like, "You're making it really hard to hate you," and she says that she hates him. But then they end up kissing, and I guess they're together now, and that's kind of, no, and then it cuts to the documentary thing where they're talking about their wedding. But I do think it's nice the way it ends, where after watching this entire movie where you keep seeing these old people on this couch talking about their relationship, that finally at the end it's the protagonists that that are doing so and stuff, and that revealing that they got married and, they're a couple this time. But yeah, this movie was just really, really nice. I think it's honestly the writing that makes it, but also the acting as well. I think acting wise, I'm still thinking about, Meg Ryan playing a character that has to have like a fake orgasm in a restaurant and just being able to pull that out of nowhere. It's crazy. But yeah, I could see myself watching this again. I don't know if this will become because I don't have like a movie I watch every Valentine's Day or something, but I could see this being that kind of movie for me. Maybe not every year, but maybe every like couple of years or something. I definitely want to watch this again at some point, but I just still can't believe I hadn't seen this before because it was so good, and I'm really happy that I didn't know much about it to begin with. I feel like if someone told me like, yeah, they just like talk the whole time and whatever, and there's these time skips, I might not have been as interested, but I feel like from just watching it, you really kind of get a better picture of what it is. But yeah, this is one I highly recommend. I loved this movie. I'm gonna have to tell my parents that I finally watched it, and they'll probably ask me on my opinion of it and stuff, and that'll be a whole thing. That'll be nice, because I think they knew that I've been wanting to watch this for a while, and I'm glad I finally did. Excuse me. Yeah. Okay, so that's that. Thanks for watching. Happy Valentine's Day. I don't know if you'll get more romance movies from me. I mean, you're going to get a video later on where I'm going to say, in like a year or whatever, of like, I finally get to watch this movie, and now I've watched the movie. So maybe you'll get a romance movie by then at some point. I don't know. All right, to make up for it. Bye-bye.